things are happening right now in Iran. Quite a bit of action, and we don't know exactly where this is going, but, we have some sort of sense. The latest is that we have evacuated troops, or are in the process, from Al Udeid base in Qatar. It's our largest air base in the Middle East. Fox News described it as we are evacuating from, quote, major bases throughout the Middle East. Now, that might have just been loose language to sum up the one base. So at this hour, it's unclear whether it's multiple bases or just the one in Qatar. Reuters is reporting that Tehran has delivered a message to key Gulf states, including Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, that if Washington launches military action against Iran, Iranian forces will strike U.S. military bases across the region. This comes on the heels of a week in which there have been many questions about what we're about to do in Iran. President Trump said if you shoot any protesters, we're locked and loaded and ready to go in. Then they did shoot a bunch of protesters, and we haven't done anything yet, but President Trump canceled a Tuesday meeting he was supposed to have, or he and his emissaries with Iranian emissaries, and said, no, not until you release the hostages and behave better. It hasn't gone in that direction. There is a report out of Channel 14 in Israel that they report a foreign nation has been arming some of the Iranian protesters, suggesting some of the targeting of these protesters is because they're armed, which gets to one of the complications of this whole thing. It is believed by virtually everybody that both CIA and Mossad are there and playing some role in this, but Iranians who are, pushing for change have made very clear, and about 100 videos that I've been watching trying to find, an actual finger on the pulse of what's happening there, that they are the ones pushing for this, that they want to get rid of the Ayatollah, and they don't want it suggested that this is an Israeli-directed thing or a U.S.-directed thing. Like, clearly they might be getting some help from those two, but that they want the Ayatollah gone. They want regime change. And the big, big question after what, if anything, is the U.S. doing is change to what? Because just a quick broad view, what I see is CNN platforming the son of the deposed Shah, Reza Pahlavi, who's acting like he could step in and be the leader, and he can't. He hasn't even been in Iran in 40 years. He has no constituency. Actual Iranians, if you watch their videos, are like, who? No, it's not him. I think he's CNN's version of, again, the Iranian Jeb Bartlett that's just going to plop in there. And he's so super friendly to America. And the Iranians, I haven't seen any constituency over there being like, yeah, that's the one we want. So the question is who? I don't know. So, it's another area where it's like, do we have a plan? If we get rid of the Ayatollah, does that help? If U.S. forces go over there and get involved, does that help? Because there's this risk that some Iranians will rebel against that, it's like, the great evil Satan has interfered in a revolution that was, by the people, and now have an effect of causing them to rally around the regime. These are all questions that I have no answers to. They're just some of the issues that I see being discussed by people who are smart about Iran as we get these reports that we're evacuating our troops from our bases, expecting retaliation. And of course, Emily, the question is retaliation for what? What are we about to do that we're expecting retaliation for?
Right. And that's I think one of the important points is Iran has pledged retaliation. No surprise there. We saw some of the same dance back in June when we struck their nuclear sites. And so obviously if Iran is pledging retaliation, the logical next move is to evacuate the base in Qatar, which happened at the time, and to start evacuating bases all over the Middle East. If you don't evacuate bases all over the Middle East, then you're obviously in a situation where there can be real tripwires for a bigger conflict if American troops start dying, even if what this administration is doing is, quote, non-kinetic. That was a leak from the administration. I mean, it was sourced to a U.S. official from Barack Ravid over at Axios that Marco Rubio was considering, quote, non-kinetic ways to aid the protesters in Iran. And that could mean a lot of different things. It could mean arming protesters, as you mentioned. It could mean other dirty tricks, CIA type operations, that sort of thing. But even if that's what's at play, because the U.S. doesn't want its fingerprint on what regime change happens for the points that you were just outlining, does U.S. fingerprints actually make it less likely for whatever the regime changes to succeed if it has, in Venezuela, this is a problem right now for Delcy Rodriguez. People care about Venezuelan sovereignty in Venezuela. They care about Iranian sovereignty in Iran. And so if it looks like U.S. fingerprints are on a regime change operation, does that make it harder for whatever change happens to succeed? These are all things the administration is considering, in addition to the fact that Trump set kind of a red line. And yesterday in his interview with Tony DeCopel, he did something very interesting. DeCopel said thousands and thousands of people have been killed. And Trump pushed back on that number, which is genuinely interesting because obviously the numbers, which is the most tragic and disgusting thing in the world, but they're being used as a pretext. People play with the numbers as a pretext for intervention, which is horrible and awful because these deaths are tragic across the board. But Trump pushed back on DeCopel and said he's heard two different numbers, which, Megyn, I think indicates that he's listening to both sides within his administration, the Vance side, the Lindsey Graham side, and is of mixed feeling himself.
That's so good. I mean, good for President Trump for being cautious before we unleash the power of our military. And it's cautious to remove our troops from the bases in the region as well, because even if we don't have something planned that's imminent, things are ratcheting up over there. And we do need to be extra cautious about our American lives that are in the region, which is what, of course, we care about the most. I will say it's very interesting to try to figure out what the folks inside Iran, exactly what they want. They don't seem to back the Ayatollah and this regime. But I did hear somebody pointing out, look, they have thousands on the streets right now protesting. When there was the overthrow of the Shah, they had millions. And so it's not exactly at scale from what it once was. But if you look anywhere on social media, you can find, just dozens and dozens of Iranians who've managed to get a message out saying that they're so thankful to President Trump. They love President Trump. They want President Trump's help. Now, again, does that speak for the nation? Does that speak for what's actually going to happen in Iran if we do, quote, help? And there's the matter of zooming out to 30,000 feet and looking at U.S. foreign policy right now, right? Because Trump definitely did not run on being an intervener in all these foreign countries, and that would make it like two foreign countries in 2 weeks' time, Venezuela and Iran, and still some saber rattling about Greenland, about Colombia. So this is a lot for the Cuba, right? Let's not forget Cuba. This is a lot for the American people to kind of handle, as every day their news feed is filled with, violent scenes out of Minneapolis. Right here in America, we've got our own problems to solve.
Right. And, I said this at the time back in June. I'm more than willing to be proven wrong about the risks of an operation in Iran on the nuclear strikes. I was again, more than willing to be proven wrong. But I guess actually a better way to put it is that what I don't think was proven wrong is the risks of operations like this are really high. That's partially why Trump triumphs it as such a success, is that the risks it could go wrong are so high. And so far, that has not happened. And the same would apply to strikes, actually this time around in Iran, of course. And so you are risking potential quagmire level U.S. involvement in the Middle East. And Iran is not Venezuela.
That's scary.
It's very scary. Genuinely, I know, and you've been recently talking about this too, how you have sons, you have children who are of service age, and just thinking about that is it's just such a glass of cold water doused all over you, because it's chilling when you think back to what happened after Iraq and how eager so many of us were to exact retribution, and how easily people took advantage of that in the Bush administration at the time.
I went to, it was the midterms 2 years prior to Trump's election. So That would have been 2022. And I was at my son's school. My son was too young to be in the class, but it was like the AP government class at the high school level. And I was talking to these guys, and they were kind of helping me around the midterms, just, for fun. I thought it'd be a good experience for them. And I got some help out of it too. It was great. And it's an all boys school. And so I'm dealing with a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds. And we stayed in touch as we geared up for that presidential debate that happened back in December of 2023. And those guys, those young guys, were all like to a man against Nikki Haley in like that sort of primary season and that presidential debate, because they thought she's going to get us into a war, and we're the ones who are likely to have to fight that. Now, everybody's worried about a draft without cause, right? Like there could be a draft, but like right now we have an all volunteer military, but you go to the worst place, especially if you're of age, of course, or the mother of that age. So I realize this is a remote possibility, like we're really getting ahead of ourselves, but I'm just telling you what was on the mind of these, like to a man. Every 17 and 18-year-old in that class was against Nikki Haley because they thought she was too bellicose on the subject of foreign interventions, too much of a neocon, and they resented her, thinking, she doesn't have to go, but I might have to go, or my buddies might have to go. And they all looked at Trump, who wasn't at that debate, but they all knew he was obviously in the race, as the antidote to that. And yet here we are, a couple years later, Emily, and I haven't checked in to see how Nikki Haley feels about any of this, but I'm going to go ahead and guess she'd be thrilled to see us intervene in Iran.
Yes, I think that is a fair guess. And that's where we get into this territory of the risk calculus being that it's possible. And Trump seems to be very convinced that the military, the combination of Hegseth's Department of War and Trump's leadership is, buzzing, it's running on all cylinders, and is in a shape where he can do precision type operations like what happened in Iran, like what happened in Venezuela. But that confidence, while in both of those cases, I think it's still pretty early to know how either of those shakes out, but at least for the short term, he was largely proven correct. The operations went off without hitches and were successful. Trump seems to really revel in moments like that, and understandably so. That confidence, what worries me is that confidence can get dangerous, because you don't want to be in a position where you feel like because two successes have happened and arguably beat the odds, that you're going to continue beating the odds around the world. And Iran is a very, very, very complicated country. We don't even need to say that. Everybody knows it. It's a very complicated place. It's not in our hemisphere like Venezuela. It doesn't share some of the same cultural positions that the US and Venezuela do, even though that's hard enough as it is. So this, the risk of another quagmire is even higher at this point. So it's very uncertain, and I think that is reflected in why Trump is getting mixed advice from his own cabinet. And by the way, thank God he is. Assuming that's true, thank God he is, because it would be much more of a disaster if you only had people sounding like Lindsey Graham in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What we don't want to hear is, Mr. President, who's in charge of Iran? Answer, me. Like that, we really don't want to hear that. Good luck with that, right? It's like, who takes over? If we take out the Ayatollah, who is going to take over? A new year means new financial goals, like making sure your savings are secure and diversified. Will this be the year you decide to talk to someone from Birch Gold Group? They use an educational approach with a deep understanding of macroeconomics. There are forces pushing the dollar lower right now and gold higher, which is why they believe every American should own physical gold. So until January 30th, if you are a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, just text MK to 989898. Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you are still eligible for a rebate of up to $10,000. Consider making right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate of up to $10,000 when you buy by January 30th. Text MK to the number 989898 and claim your eligibility today. Again, just text MK to the number 989898 to check it out. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.